Well, I was always fascinated with Colorado State. At one time when I first got here, it was Colorado A&M. But unfortunately, I had an opportunity. I was working at the John F. Kennedy Child Development Center at the University of Colorado Medical School in Denver. And we had a grant from the government to develop a program for children with disabilities. And I was the OT that was selected. So when I moved over there from Children's Hospital, where I was working, the senior students from Colorado A&M, but Colorado State, were coming to Denver for their senior year. And that was in order for them to maintain their accreditation, they had to have some medical courses that they didn't have in Fort Collins. So they came to Denver, and I got to teach all the pediatric courses. And I really fell in love with teaching. I thought that's a wonderful thing. Well, when I left there, I actually left because I was doing a grant for the American Occupational Therapy Association. And while I was doing that grant, they called me from CSU and said, "We're going to have a faculty position open. We'd like for you to apply." Well, I just like, whoa. And so I thought, well, why not? I really like teaching, and my grant was almost up. I had applied for another one, but I thought, well, if I get it, I can do it at CSU. So I went up and talked. Helen McHugh was the dean at the time, and she was just lovely. So I will be ever grateful for her because she gave me the opportunity. So I took the position, was hired as an associate professor, and within a year, I decided, look, my record was great enough that I could apply for a tenured full professor position, which I did and was awarded that position. That was in the early 80s, like 83, somewhere in there, 82, 83. And so that was just great. And then very soon, a department head position came open because they decided that they were going to keep the department, and it was beginning to develop, and we were beginning to do some research, so they thought the department could be a part of the College of Human Resource Sciences. And so I thought, great, and I thought, well, and my husband said, look, Ellie, you always have told me that if you want to make a difference and you want to make changes, you got to be in a position where you can do it. So you better be in that department head position. So I applied and fortunately was selected to be the department head. And I stayed in that position for, 7, 8 years, somewhere in there. And at that time, the two colleges, College of Professional Studies and College of Human Resource Sciences, merged to become the College of Applied Human Sciences. And we hired a dean, and he came in, and he then, of course, selected his staff. And he offered me the position of Associate Dean for Research. So that was really very exciting as well, and I accepted that position. I hated leaving my OT department, but I thought, this is a great opportunity. I can continue to do some real good with this. And so I did. And then he left as the dean, and they had a search, a national search, and I applied for the dean's position. And my biggest competition was from MIT, so that was kind of, I thought, oh, there's no way I'm going to be selected to be dean. But I was, and that was very exciting. I was selected. Al Link was the provost at the time, and I became the dean of the college and absolutely loved the position. And it was just great. The college was young, it was growing, we were developing, and all kinds of fun things were going on. And then Al Yates was selected as the president, and of course he wanted his whole staff. So the vice presidents that were there, that included Al Link as provost, academic vice president, they resigned. And that's typical. I mean, your president wants to have his whole staff. And so he called me over and asked if I would apply. Well, I thought, phew, I never had even aspired to even think about anything like that. But I kept thinking, well, this is a great opportunity, so I did. And I was selected as interim dean, and I did that for a year. And then the position was going to be full-time. And I was selected as the dean and stayed as the provost, and stayed in that position until the early 90s. Well, yes, actually, I was a product of the 1970s, which was the renaissance of the feminist movement. And it's when women began to sprout. And I could never understand my peers' anger at men. I just thought, what are they talking about, And I just thought, wait a minute here. I never really did get that. Because I thought, look, if we can do it. I did it. Everybody could do it. We don't have to succumb. And men are not trying to put us down. And I really began to realize, wow, what's going on here? Well, occupational therapy is 97% women. That time, the College of Human Resource Sciences was 96% women. So I didn't really see at the university the problems the other women faculty were having, because we didn't have any problems. But when I became provost, I became very aware of it. And I think it was because there was a woman for the first time in that position. The women faculty began to come and ask for some help, and they began to complain, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, we've got to do something at a university. Granted, this is a land-grant school. Granted, it has history and heritage with the men's professions. And there's a lot of tradition and history there. But that doesn't mean that we as women cannot thrive and become just as important as the men. But the women didn't seem to do that. And I guess I'll have to say what I ended up thinking is that the women faculty at CSU were almost like victims. They saw themselves as victims. And you can't continue to progress if you have this victim mentality. And I can see why they would begin to do that. They begin to put themselves down. So I thought, we have got to help these women. And I was a firm believer in the power of mentoring. So I thought mentoring programs would be a wonderful thing to have, and to help women help each other to feel empowered, because they were really feeling powerless. And they needed to be able to understand their own power. And a very great program came across my desk, and it was called Mentoring Circles. And we had them come up and talk to us about what they do. And we thought, well, this is good. We'll try it and see how it works. And we started with 3 mentoring circle programs. One was for students, they were the women athletes at the school, and the other 2 were for faculty. And we had within the circles, they were circles of about 18 people, and we would have something that would represent the whole university, like administrators, tenured faculty, tenured track faculty, administrative professionals, state classified, everything that represented the system. Because it was important I think, for everyone to realize, and particularly when you're trying to gain power, to realize that it is a systems approach. We cannot function alone. Everyone supports each other, and everyone has their own roles. So that worked really very well. And when I was a provost, I really decided I'm tired. I was very tired, because I ended up having to go to court so many times to represent the university. There were so many grievances and lawsuits that were being filed. And I ended up having to do that more than I really wanted. So I talked to Al, he was the president, and said, Al, I'm really tired. I would like to step down in a year. That would be my 5th year as provost. And this way you would have a year we could work together and be thinking about who will fill the position. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, well, you go home and think about it over the weekend, and you come back and we'll meet on Monday and we'll talk about that. But he said, I don't know that I'm ready for you to go. So I did come back, and we got together, and I said, I think what I really want to do is to continue on to try and provide programs that help our women faculty become tenured faculty, to help them become more empowered. I think first respect of self, and understand that you are a very unique individual, and you have lots to give, and begin to feel, your own power. That's one thing that's important. I think also passion, having a passion for something you want to accomplish and something you really believe in is an important trait. Honesty and integrity, I mean, those are absolutes. They just have to be there. And actually, as a respect, not only respect in women, as I said, but pride in yourself and in what you're doing. And probably courage to step out of your box, and courage to go forth and take advantage of all the opportunities that are there at the university. And I think also my big lesson, as I look back over the years of leadership, the many leadership roles I have had, my big lesson has been that you listen to your inner voice and not to the clamor outside. And I would listen to my inner voice that, yeah, I wanted to be a department head because I could make some changes. I could make this department prosper. And I wouldn't do it by myself. I would have to do it with other people. So I think that's the other thing in leadership that's so important, is to be able to facilitate others. Really give others the opportunities to do things. And together, you really do then promote the department, you promote the college, promote the university, etc. ATRC has really grown to be more than just a part of the Occupational Therapy Department. Certainly students come to learn about using assistive technology with persons with disabilities. Everything from physical to mental to brain damage to spinal cord injuries, all kinds of disabilities that a person might have, and that they could then utilize technology to help them in the world. And that's been real important. And I think now what I see happening is just grand. They've reached out, and it's open to the students at CSU, all students, not just OT students, to learn how, but it's open to students. And Marla Roll, who is the director of the ATRC, has worked with the university to help the students access ATRC and to come over and take advantage and get them going. It also, the one personal thing that's really important to me was that about 6 years ago, my husband fell and broke his neck and had a spinal cord injury. And he became paralyzed from the chest down. And he was at Craig Hospital, where I first worked when I first came out here as an OT, which is, I never dreamed I'd go back there as a wife of a patient, but there I was. And when he was released, we came up here, and I took him to ATRC, and Marla worked with him to help him find the right kind of computer, etc. And he was very grateful for her to do that, and it really meant a lot to him. And I thought it was exciting for me to know that this was something I had started, and now we're making use out of it personally, which was just a wonderful gift. That was a big surprise. The Occupational Therapy Department wrote the nomination for a Doctorate of Science program, and I don't know much about how they came about to select myself, but they did. And I wasn't working at the university. Yes, I was. I was teaching students, senior students. So I was there as kind of a faculty person. But it was because of my research. And that was just a real thrill. Then when I found out that I had to give a commencement address at the all-university graduation, I just like, oh my goodness. So, and that was a fun thing to do, but it was a great honor. And another great honor that the university has given me was they nominated me for the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame. And I was selected for that, and the reason they selected me for that was my contributions to higher education. So that was a real honor. So I have been duly awarded many things, not only just great friendships and all that I've learned, but I've been acknowledged by the university, and it's a great pleasure. It's interesting in your life. You go through a period and everybody says, set your goals, set your strategies, what you're going to do. You got to have a plan. You got to do that. And I look back and I used to scratch my head, and people would say, do you have a goal? And I'd say, oh, sure, I got a plan. Well, I didn't. And I never did. That wasn't me. I knew if there was any one goal, if you would want to call it a goal, I knew I wanted to be a leader. I knew that when I was a Brownie and a Girl Scout. And I think I would put myself in places where I could be a leader. And so I never set a goal to be a department head, to be a dean, to be a provost. Those weren't my goals at all. It wasn't my goal to do those things. But I wanted to create change. I wanted to help make the world a little better place to be. And I knew that to do that, you had to be in a leadership position. So I would look for opportunities, or opportunities would come my way and I wouldn't say no. I would seek them out. So that's why I think my work and my life has been one of seeking and taking advantage of opportunities, not one of doing strategic planning and goal setting for myself. When you break a glass ceiling, the shards of glass really do hurt, let me tell you. Yes, and I think I noticed it when I applied for the position of dean as well as provost. And that again is, there was a lot of clamor outside saying that I wasn't qualified, I didn't have an earned PhD, I couldn't do this, I didn't do that, what's the university talking about, blah, blah, blah. And I just ignored it. I ignored that clamor and those outer voices because I knew down deep that I could. And that's the secret. You've got to know and trust yourself and respect yourself. I worked well with people. I love people. And I really saw the best in traits in others. And I think people saw that. And they would see the results of things that I had done as well. So, yeah, and it's, come back to the mentoring project. It's unique in that it's based on storytelling. And the way we mentor is through stories of, well, I had a problem like this, let me tell you what I did. And the reason I like that is that if you look at one-on-one mentoring, it gets to be hierarchical. There's somebody that's up above giving you advice. We're a world of advice givers. And we shouldn't be, because advice is hierarchical. Somebody's giving you the advice and it might not be right for you. And therefore, you feel guilty about it. And you think, well, I better do it because so-and-so is the great mentor and they're helping me do that. And it may not be good. You've got to know what's good for you. So I like storytelling because you can listen to the story and you can get and glean out of the story those things that are good for you and those things that are not appropriate for you. They might be good for somebody else, but you can take them. Now, where did I learn the power of stories? I learned the power of stories from Keith Miser. He was the vice president of student affairs when I was the provost. He is the world's best storyteller there ever is. And, and I loved him because his stories, he was always humorous. And we'd go, after I listened to the story and I'd be driving home at night, I'd think, you know what? There's some good lessons in that story. And I learned a lot from him that way. So I began to really understand the power of story and using stories for mentoring rather than advice giving or therapy or et cetera, but help people grow by telling them real stories of what you've done and let them seek out from that ideas that they can make as part of themselves. When I was hired as faculty in the early 80s, I was hired at the same time that they hired Jeff Glenner. And they brought us in they were trying to say, are we going to keep the OT department or not? And they decided if they were going to keep it, it had to have a very active graduate program. It was only a bachelor's program at the time. So Jeff and I are hired to do that. And we started with, building the curriculum, et cetera, that we did. And we knew that Fort Collins wasn't a real attractive place for people from Denver to come. And most of the occupational therapists were in the Denver area. So we knew we had to reach out to get them there. So we decided that we would teach the courses in the evening and on weekends in the Denver area. And we could get working therapists to take the program, and we would begin to build it. And once you get a program going, it can build its own reputation, and ultimately then people will come to campus, as they now do. Well, the funny part of all that is both Jeff and I were new to the university. We didn't know the rules and regulations of academe. I mean, we were just gutsy. We were going to go out and do this. Well, we did this for about 2 years, and then we learned that, oh, you shouldn't have done that. You had to go through continuing ed, because the continuing ed was the ones in charge of programs that were offered off campus. So they stopped our great program because of the rules and regulations. I always say, academia's rules are us. Boy, they got the rules. But this is where you need the courage just to do things. So
you're still able to get it off the ground?
Oh, yes. Well, and look at how it's grown. It's now, it has a PhD program. Now, that was after my time that they developed the PhD program. But no, it's been doing very well and growing. So, and that's a lot when they first started out, we didn't have a lot of body of knowledge in our profession that we could begin to have a PhD program. But through the research that we have been doing in the profession, we've built that body of knowledge. And now it is certainly a legitimate doctoral program. And it's highly ranked. It's one of the top 6 programs in the United States. So they've really gained a lot in that. Now, in terms of seminars,
the first-year seminars and liberal arts, were you part of establishing those?
Well, the first-year seminars were an outgrowth of what we did to revise the general education curriculum. And that came at a time that we really wanted, classes are big for freshmen. You come from a small school and you come there and you're going to have a lecture class in psychology or history or et cetera, and there's 100 people in the class. So we thought, and research was really showing, and that was Keith Miser and I were working together, it would be very important to see if we couldn't, within this curriculum, have an opportunity for students to have a small seminar, a small class where they could all go, like 20 people. And then we were wanting desperate things like, then these 20 people should be in the same class together in the large class, but we couldn't do all that scheduling. But it was really a dream of ours to have every student have a seminar when they first came so they could learn about the university. And I think the university, I don't think they're doing this as much, but I'm sorry, I hope someday they do, because I think the history of land-grant universities are very, very important to understand why Lincoln signed that proclamation. What does a land-grant university stand for? It's got some very strong philosophy and about professional development and education. And I think when you are participating with a university, it's good to know what it's all about. And I think it's sad that most students graduate from there and they have no concept or idea what it's about. So we really wanted to have one of those seminars with students to learn about the university. What does it mean to be going to a land-grant university? So, and I don't know, I don't know what's going on now with the seminars to know whether they're still going or not.
I don't think they are. Yeah.
So it's costly. And that's been one of the big problems, right, that you have to. But we did start them, and they were very successful. I couldn't have done what I was able to accomplish without lots of help. I mean, it's a real community of people, and there's so many people that have made a real impression on my life, you know. And I mentioned Helen McHugh, I mentioned Keith Miser, I mentioned Jeff Glenner. Kevin Olgenbruns is another. She was assistant dean for the College of, we were the Human Resource College then, and she was assistant dean when I became a department head. And we would meet for our meetings, and she was real important to me. Pam Landon was the other woman department head on campus. And we were rare creatures, Pam Landon and myself, and well, Carol Makala too, but there just weren't any women that were there. And of course, Al Yates provided lots of great opportunity for me as well. So, and then the faculty themselves, Louise White, Shar Ager, great support, Jody Hanslick. She became the department head after me and continued to build the department and its reputation. So lots of people have been involved in my life and have been really the reasons and the impetus for what we have gained together. I love people. I like to meet them. I like to converse with them. Everybody's important. Everybody's got something important to say. And I guess that's the power of listening. Also is a real important thing for any leader to have. But I don't know, life is just great. And I just think it's always been, my glass has always been half full, never half empty. And I think the positive aspects of my love for people and working together, and I love being a facilitator. I like facilitating another's growth. That comes from my profession's philosophy of, you know, that you look for abilities, not disabilities. And that's ingrained in me from very early. So I thank my profession for that, because I think that has been a real key in my developing leadership. Al Yates did an awfully lot for Colorado State University. His legacy, I think it's very broad and very deep. But one thing that to me comes out is that he truly believed in the community of a university community. And he really, truly wanted to promote the concept of community. And I think that's what we're talking about when we're talking about conversing with people and respecting each other. And he really did believe in that. And I think that's a great thing that he left the university. He certainly also brought the university to everyone's awareness. He traveled the state. He worked with legislators. He worked with politicians. He worked with business people. He worked with just everybody. And he loved the land grant concept. He came from Washington State University, which was a land grant school too. And he loved that concept that history and agriculture and mechanical arts and home economics, those very early things where, you know, they were there and opened up the school so everybody could go to school. And they believed in, you know, everybody should have a right for a university education. And then, you know, that 1870, but the 1890 schools were the black universities that were recognized as land grant schools for students who are black. And that was the other thing that I was real proud of when I was provost. We really worked hard to increase the diversity of our university. And we did some partnership schools with some of the black 1890 schools. And with, Baton Rouge was one. And in Memphis, in Mississippi. And we really joined in some partnerships, and they sent some of their faculty to us, and we sent some of our faculty there to try and build and give to each other. And one that I really liked was service education. that, do you remember that, Victoria? Yeah, because that came about. Baton Rouge, we had things to offer Baton Rouge, but they had a lot to offer us. And actually, come to think about it, I think they had first year seminars. And when I went down there and visited, I was so impressed with their program for undergraduate students. And so I liked their service learning part, that and we put that into our curriculum, and you were the person. I think the true test of anyone's legacy is longevity. You know, and like the first year seminars, I think are a wonderful idea. I hope that they come up again in the future when there's more money, because I think it's a great thing that we would have for students coming to the university, because it's a big school and a lot of students drop out that first year. And if we could prevent that, we would be well on our way to helping students be more successful. So I hope that gets revisited.